Hey guys, we are going to move on to Unit 8, Day 1, which is talking about the Pythagorean Theorem. Basically, this is a concept we learn in 8th grade math, but since you're in Math 1, we're just going to quickly go over it because we need this theorem to be able to find the distance between 2 points, which is going to lead us into the Math 1 content, which is asking us to find the area or the perimeter of shapes when the distance or the points might be a little bit off, okay? So let's talk about the Pythagorean theorem. The Pythagorean theorem can only be used on a right triangle. This is the only time you can use this theorem, okay? And remember that a right triangle is basically a triangle with a 90-degree angle. And there are three sides. We have A, B, and C. Okay? C is considered to be the hypotenuse. And basically the hypotenuse is the largest side, and it's across from the 90-degree angle. Okay? And then the other two sides are known as the legs. Okay? And basically the legs are the other two sides. The other two sides. Okay? And using this information, our theorem is basically a square plus b square equals c square. This theorem allows us to find any missing side. It can also help us determine if three measurements form a right triangle, okay? So the most important side is always the hypotenuse because it's the largest side and it's across from the 90-degree angle. Okay, and the other two sides, it doesn't matter which one you place where on the theorem. Okay, so let's go do a couple examples, and once I do a few examples, you're going to see how easy this is. Okay, so let's move on to number one. Find the length of the missing side. Using the following examples, round answers to the nearest hundredth, two decimal places. Okay, so we have this. So the first thing you always want to do is you want to identify your letter A, your letter B, and your letter C. But always start out with C. C is the most important one. If you place C in the wrong place or you choose the wrong side to be the letter C, you're going to mess up your whole problem. So the easiest way is to locate where the 90-degree angle is and go across from the 90-degree angle, and that will always be your letter C. Okay, so we know that my hypotenuse, which is the largest side, or the letter C, is here. That's what's missing. The other two sides could be A and B. Doesn't matter which one is A and which one is B. You could have said that 6 was B and A was 3. Okay, it doesn't matter because you're going to get the same answer. The one that matters is the letter C. So we have 6, 3, and then I'm going to put a little question mark for C. Now I'm going to take these numbers and plug them into my theorem, okay, which is a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Okay, so here we go. A squared plus b squared equals c squared. So a was 6 squared plus b, which is 3 squared, equals c squared. Okay, now I'm going to do 6 squared plus 3 squared. You are welcome to use decimals, okay? Give me a second. This is a little bit too bright. Let me turn down the brightness. Okay, that's better. Okay, so remember that decimals works as a regular calculator, so I can just say 6 square, and remember the square is right there, okay, plus 3 square, and we get 45. So 45 equals c squared. Now remember, we're looking just for c. We're not looking for c squared, so I have to get rid of the square. The opposite of a square is square root. So I'm going to take the square root of both sides. So when you do the square root of a square, they cancel themselves out, and you're left with c equals. Now I'm going to type in the square root of 45 into decimals. Now, for those who don't know where the square root of 40 or the square root symbol is at, it's all the way down here, right beside the pi button. If you click that, you will get your square root symbol and just type in 45. And there you go. We get 6.708. It said round to the nearest hundredth. And so my final answer is going to be 6.71. And there you go. That's your missing side. So that hypotenuse is 6.71. And we already said that the hypotenuse is the largest side. And there you go. Yeah, the largest side. Okay, so let's go ahead and do number 3. Same thing, find the missing side. So start out with the letter C. The hypotenuse is across from the 90-degree angle, so that's your letter C. The other sides could be, A and B. Doesn't matter which one is A and which one is B. So using my theorem, A squared plus B squared equals C squared, I'm going to plug in those values. So 22 squared plus 14 squared equals C squared. Okay. Let's go ahead and add those values. So we have 22 squared plus 14 squared. And I got 680 equals C squared. Then the opposite of a square is square root. Okay, so that leaves me with C equals. Let's see what we get for the square root of 680. 26.08 after rounding. Okay. There you go. That's your missing side, which is the hypotenuse. And as you can see, it is the largest side. Okay. Let's move on to the next page. Number 4. Remember, you always want to start with the letter C, the hypotenuse, and it's always across from the 90-degree angle. And the other two sides could be A and B. So here we go. A squared plus B squared equals C squared. So A is 3.7 squared plus B squared because that's what we're missing. So I'm just going to leave it as B squared. You're welcome to put down X squared, but it really doesn't matter what letter you put down because you're going to be looking for that. Equals 4.2 squared for the letter C. Okay? Now, if you notice, this is just a simple equation. I'm solving for the letter B. So what I want to do is I want to jailbreak this over to the other side. So the opposite of a positive 3.7 square will become a minus 3.7 square. Okay? And you're left with B squared equals, now using decimals, I'm going to type that in and figure out what I get. Okay? So here we go. We have 4.2 square minus 3.7 square. And I got 3.95, okay? Now, the opposite of a square is square root. So we're left with B equals, let's see what the square root of 3.95 is. Darn it. There we go. So 1.98, and that's just going to round to 1.99. Okay. Or if you just want to round it to 2, that's perfectly fine. Okay. So the missing side or the measurement of the leg is 2 or 1.99. It doesn't matter. And if you notice, we already said that the hypotenuse is the largest side, which it is, and the other two sides are the legs. So there you go. Okay. Now the reason this one is a little bit different to the other two is because over here we were finding the hypotenuse. Okay, these two examples we had to find the hypotenuse versus this example and the next one we're about to do is asking you to find one of the legs. Okay, so that's why we had to jailbreak so we could be able to move everything away from the letter. Over here we didn't have to jailbreak anything because everything was already on one side away from the letter, you see? So both the numbers were on one side and the letter, the variable, was on the other, so we didn't have to worry about moving things around. Versus over here, that wasn't the case. I had a 3.7 square on the same side as b squared, so I had to move that away from it. Because remember, when you're solving equations, you want the letter to be by itself or the variable to be by itself before you start, making any further changes, okay? So let's move on to number 9. First thing is determine where your letter C is at. Across from the 90-degree angle is your letter C. The other two sides are A and B. Okay, so here we go. A squared, which is 3 squared, plus B squared, because that's what's missing, equals 7 squared for the C square. Now I'm going to jailbreak, and that becomes a minus 3 squared. So I'm left with B squared equals, let's see what 7 squared minus 3 squared is. Of course, you can do this in your head if you really wanted to. If you wanted to solve this mentally, we could take care of that, okay? However, just to be on the safe side, let's take care of that, okay? So 7 squared minus 3 squared is 40. And now the opposite of a square is square root. So B equals, let's see what the square root of 40 is. 6.32. Okay? 6.32. And that is the missing side. Okay? Let's move on. We're not going to do any problems on this page. Okay, we'll do word problems later, but they're not really that important right now. And now we're going to talk about the converse of the Pythagorean theorem. So basically the converse tells us that we can use the theorem to help us determine if the following measurements make a right triangle. So let's look at number 9. It says if each triangle is a right triangle, or state if each triangle is a right triangle. So basically they're asking me, does 15, 12, and 9 meters form a right triangle? And I know you're going to sit here and say, well, that looks like a right triangle, Mr. Gomez. Yes, it looks like it, but can we guarantee 100% that it is a right triangle? So let's use our theorem. So across from the 90-degree angle, or sorry, we don't know if it has a 90-degree angle, but let's choose the one that is the largest side. That's going to be my letter C, which is the hypotenuse. So we know 15 is the largest side, and the other two sides are A and B. Now, using these numbers, I'm going to plug them into my theorem. So we have A squared, which is 12 squared, plus B squared, which is 9 squared, equals C squared, which is 15 squared. I'm going to figure out what 12 squared plus 9 squared is, okay? And I get 225. Now, let's take care of 15 squared, which is also 225. If I get a true statement, or it says a number equals the other number is the same number, and it's a true equation, then it is a right triangle. It is a right triangle. Okay? So, true statement equals a right triangle. False statement equals not a right triangle. Okay? So since we had a true statement, 225 does equal 225, then we know that these three measurements do form a right triangle. Okay? Now let's look at number 12. The largest side is C, which is 48.5, and the other two sides could be A and B. Okay? So A squared, which is 39 squared, plus B squared, which is 32.5 squared, equals 48.5 squared. Okay, so let's combine and evaluate that part of the equation. So here we go. 39 squared plus 32.5 squared. Okay, that gets me 2577.25. 2577.25. And then 48.5 square gives me 2352, okay, 0.25. Okay, so clearly these two numbers are not the same. Okay, so because they're not equal, this is not a right triangle. Okay. Okay, we're not going to do number 13 because that's identical to number 9. The only difference is that this one, they didn't give you a picture. So you know that this is going to be A, B, and C because this is the largest number. Just plug it in into your theorem, do the same steps, and you're going to see that this is a right triangle. Okay? So if you have any questions, let me know.